Welcome back in here on WQAM. The Miami Hurricanes getting set to take on the Indiana Hoosiers in the national championship game. And it is time to head out to the Toyota of Hollywood hotline. Shop over 2,000 Toyotas on sale. One location, Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan, where we are joined by Jordan McPherson of the Miami Herald. Here, Omar's colleague at the Miami Herald. Jordan, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me, guys. How you doing?
We are great, and we are getting ready for a big football game coming up in 6 days from now. And you are out there at practice. How is the team treating this week and getting set for this game here? Now, I know that this is kind of an interesting situation here because they are the home team. They don't have to travel. So you don't have the whole deal that like Indiana's got to deal with or what Miami's had to deal with the past month and change here. So how are they treating this week? How are they preparing for this game?
Yeah, they're trying as hard as they can to just treat it like another week. It's obviously impossible to do given everything at stake, everything they've had to do to get here. But in all reality, Indiana doesn't show up until Friday. So everything leading up to basically when the teams leave on Friday would be regular practices as they would. Miami doing everything at their facility on campus, and they'll actually get to do that once both teams arrive. Usually everybody's at a separate site. I think it's Barry and FAU are the two that generally host the teams when it's the Orange Bowl or the national championship or what have you. But Miami will get to stay at their facility on campus, which is fantastic for them. And they're trying to just keep the blinders on like they've had all season, like they've had to do basically since November when their backs have been against the wall. And the recipe has worked for 2 months, so why change it, right?
Absolutely, Jordan. My question to you is the defensive front, which had really carried this team for most of the season and probably the playoffs. They kind of had a quiet performance last week. What contributed to that, and do you think that they can wake up against the Hoosiers?
Yeah, so the first part of it is just Ole Miss gets the ball out so quickly. Trinidad Chambers is one of the fastest to get the ball out of his hands. So in terms of just your pure pressures and quarterback hurries and sacks and tackle for loss numbers, those were naturally going to go down just because of how quickly he gets the ball out. They've had a couple other opponents who are similar on that front, and they still were able to hold their own in that regard. They obviously didn't put up the gaudy numbers like they did against Texas A&M and Ohio State, but given the opponent, I think they did okay. And looking at Indiana, I mean, Miami's got the size on them, and Fernando Mendoza does take a tick or two longer than Trinidad Chambers for Ole Miss does. So that gives Miami the opportunity this time around to sort of get back to their bread and butter, get back to that ferocious attack and forcing the quarterback to scramble a little bit more, have to think a little bit more, get flushed out of the pocket a little bit more. This matchup compared to what they had last week against Ole Miss fits more of their game style and fits more into their hand.
Yeah, and it does feel, Jordan, like they are going to have to lean again on Carson Beck in this game to make some plays. I imagine they're going to have to score some points in this one. That's just judging on what we saw from Indiana last few games that they've played. But it does feel like they're going to have to lean on Carson Beck. With that being said, they were very comfortable with him on that last drive of that game. And, Miami certainly could have, played that more conservative. They could have, held for a field goal. They let him let it rip over the middle of the field, and they showed a lot of confidence in their quarterback.
Yeah, that last drive, and honestly, both of the final two drives, I mean, there were 4 lead changes total in the final 7 minutes. They needed Carson Beck to orchestrate 2 solid drives, and he came up big. That last one was just an absolute masterpiece. I mean, 15 plays, 75 yards. They knew they had 3 minutes. They knew that, and they also knew that if they scored too early, as we saw toward the end, Ole Miss would have a chance to drive back down the field. I mean, they scored that touchdown. Beck with the beautiful run to score with 18 seconds left, and 18 seconds was really Ole Miss needed to have a shot. They made it heck inside Miami's 30 and was a Hail Mary away from winning that game. So they figured out how to handle that to a T in terms of getting down the field, getting the points, but also controlling the clock, which is what they did that entire game. I think the final number was 41 and a half minutes to 18 and a half minutes when it came to time of possession. And at the end, they were able to finish those drives and get the critical touchdowns. And I'll be honest, I've been on the record multiple times saying if a game came down to Carson Beck late, I wasn't sure what to think. And I'm glad to say, for the sake of the fact I'm covering a national championship game, that he proved me wrong.
Yeah, but I think you're probably like a lot of us though, because Carson had an up and down season. Things started out great, then they had the bumps in the road, and I think there was definitely this maybe a little concern that if it came down to him needing to sling the ball around, can he do it? And I think also the fact that Malachi Tony, you just get that guy the ball anywhere, and he can be a weapon that way. But yeah, I got to tell you, I was very, very impressed with Carson on those final couple of drives there.
Jordan.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, go ahead, Omar. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
Yeah, and I just want to say, because you mentioned Malachi Tony, it was great to see what he was able to do in that games. I mean, the first two games, they bottled him up. I mean, A&M really didn't give him much outside of he had the big punt return and then the shovel pass for a touchdown late. And Ohio State just blanketed him the entire time, which forced Carson to go to C.J. Daniels, to Keelan Marion. And Tony got involved a lot more against Ole Miss, and that was a good sign to see for, again, I think that just because of how great he's been, we forget that the kid turned 18 mid-season. He enrolled a year early. He should have been helping American Heritage with a state title run this year. And here he is, 99 catches, about to become the first guy in UM history as a kid just turned 18 to have a 100-catch season at 18 years old. It's just absolutely wild. And it's good to see that he finally was able to have a couple of moments as the stage got bigger through this playoff run.
I have seen a lot of great Hurricanes. I used to cover the team from 2000 to 2007, and I could tell you I have not seen anything like Malachi Tony come through that program, and there have been a lot of great players. He is a special player. Let me ask you this, Jordan. I have been critical of the Hurricanes, especially early, before they even started losing games, because I felt like they did not have that killer mentality that great teams needed to have in terms of putting opponents away. How much do you think the losses to Louisville and to SMU changed that team and made them sort of mature and grow up?
I think the SMU game did a lot more than Louisville. Louisville, they basically chalked up to, okay, it's a bad game. Everyone's got a mulligan here or there. Just that's the way college football is. Once they lost to SMU and lost that game in overtime and knew that their backs were against the wall, they were practically dead in the water. They basically said, look, if we're not perfect, if we don't do everything possible to prove to the committee that we deserve a shot despite having two losses, we're done. And Mario Cristobal basically harped that message right afterward. Their team meeting was essentially just him showing 15 minutes of highlights from their first 5 weeks, from the Notre Dame game, from South Florida, from the Florida Gators, from FSU, everything they did right. And his message to them was, let's realize who we are. Let's not figure out who we are. Let's realize who we are. And if we get back to playing like we did those first 5 games, we're going to be fine. And then you saw that killer instinct for me came out in the Virginia Tech game where they were already up. They had the ball. They really tried to do a kneel down to a run or a couple runs for a first down to seal it out. And Virginia Tech stacked in the box. C.J. Daniels was wide open, or Malachi Tony was wide open that one. So Carson Beck throws a fade. Malachi Tony touchdown. Padded the lead, sure, but they basically said, if you're going to give us something, we're taking the shot. They did the same against Pittsburgh. And then you saw it on the defensive side throughout the playoffs with Bryce Fitzgerald with that game-sealing pick on the goal line stand. You saw it with Jacoby Thomas, game-sealing pick against Ohio State. And it got away from them a little bit late, but they were able to hold on that final drive defensively against Ole Miss. And because of what they learned from how tough that loss was and knowing how close to being out they were. And let's face it, we all probably thought they were out as soon as the SMU game happened. I did. I was basically writing, okay, the season's over. They did it again. Okay, we'll move on to 2026. And then they turned everything around, outscored opponents by 110 points the final 4 games.
Yeah.
And forced the committee to make that decision.
They grew up, man, and it was great to see them grow up. I'm used to the old school Canes, man. They did not play with their food back in the day. I know people don't remember those teams, but they did not play with their food. Let me ask you this, Jordan, because I do not, and I am learning the NIL era, the transfer portal era. I think it's crazy that a college coach like Mario Cristobal, just like everybody else, has to recruit the transfer portal, trying to build his team for next year while he's still playing. How are the Canes doing in the transfer portal, and are we buying another quarterback? And if so, who?
They're trying to buy another quarterback, but so far those efforts have come up empty. They were going after Brandon Sorsby, who was the quarterback at Cincinnati. He went to Texas Tech. They're trying for Sam Levitt, the quarterback at Arizona State the last 2 years. He's going to LSU.
Big money.
As of right now, yeah, big money indeed. And
Texas Tech is big money. Yeah.
Texas Tech is big money, and LSU is the hot new toy with Lane Kiffin. So they have pursued people. They are trying to see if Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama, who declared for the draft, will pull out from declaring for the draft, see if they could try to sway him, similar to what they did with Carson Beck a little bit more than a year ago today, and see if they can get him to come out. I mean, between Miami and a few SEC schools are offering big money. The reports are out there offering between $4 and $6.5 million to try to get him to withdraw from the draft. But nothing's concrete on that front yet. But beyond that, Miami has 4 commitments so far. They have a couple wide receivers. They have a defensive back, Omar Thornton from Boston College, who went to American Heritage. And they just got a young defensive line transfer commitment last night. But right now, obviously, quarterback's going to be the main thing that everybody keeps their eyes on. The market's thin right now. We'll see how things develop. Players have until, I believe it's Friday, to enter the portal. And anybody who's in the championship game, so Miami or Indiana, they have until the 24th to enter the portal. And once they enter, they can decide where they're going whenever. Obviously, the sooner the better for the commitments to try to get guys on campus. But it's a weird balancing act, and it's just an unfortunate consequence of the NCAA's calendar, because they're still student athletes as much as it doesn't feel like the student part is there anymore just because of the way everything works. But they still have to keep the recruiting calendar and all that in line with the academic calendar, because they have to be able to get the kids enrolled and all that. That's why signing period was in December, right before the playoffs started. It's just an absolute mess.
Yeah, it is. And I'm guessing by 2030, we're going to start seeing guys in the $10 million range with these quarterbacks. But Jordan, thank you for the time, man. Appreciate it. You can find Jordan's work at the Miami Herald. And Jordan, we appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. All right, Jordan McPherson there, Miami Herald, your colleague, Omar, at the Miami Herald. Please subscribe and support the local journalists. We do always like to promote the products when we can here, Omar, and get people to subscribe to the Miami Herald.
Jordan is a grinder. He's worked his way up in the industry, and those are the people that I respect the most.
Excellent. All right.
People like you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I knew you when you were nobody.
Well, the only reason I do this is just to earn your respect.